It usually starts with something small, a little stiffness in the morning, a joint that takes a second longer to wake up, maybe a mild ache after you've been on your feet too long, or a dull pain when climbing stairs. It's easy to ignore, to write it off as aging, weather, or just sleeping wrong. That's exactly what most of my patients did. They waited, they tolerated, they made excuses, until one day the pain wasn't occasional anymore. It was every day, and that's when they finally came to see me. As a doctor who has treated joint problems for over 2 decades, I can tell you, the earlier you pay attention to joint discomfort, the better chance you have to avoid serious damage. Pain is your body's way of whispering something's wrong before it starts screaming. But the tricky part? Joint pain can come from many different things. It's not always arthritis. Sometimes it's a tendon issue, sometimes it's related to posture or muscle imbalances. And sometimes it's something more serious, like an autoimmune condition. That's why guessing, Googling, or ignoring is never the answer. I once had a patient named Carla, 58 years old, active, healthy. She came to me because her fingers were starting to feel stiff in the mornings. At first, she thought it was because she was typing too much. Then, she noticed swelling. Then, pain that lingered for hours. She waited almost a year before seeking help. By the time we diagnosed her with rheumatoid arthritis, the damage had already started. The worst part? Early treatment could have slowed the disease dramatically. She told me later, "I just thought it was part of getting older." That mindset, that pain is normal, is the most dangerous myth of all. We often associate joint pain with aging, as if it's just a tax we all must pay eventually. But the truth is, aging doesn't have to mean suffering. Not all 70-year-olds have bad knees. Not all 60-year-olds wake up stiff. I've treated plenty of older adults who walk pain-free because they listened to their bodies, moved regularly, and got help early. And I've seen younger people, even in their 30s, develop severe joint issues because they ignored warning signs. Pain is not about age. It's about inflammation, pressure, wear and tear, and sometimes your own immune system working against you. So how do you know what's causing your joint pain? That's the big question. And that's exactly what we're going to explore in this video. We'll talk about the different types of arthritis, how to recognize them, and what other conditions can mimic their symptoms. Because if you're living with joint pain, you deserve more than just guessing. You deserve clarity. You deserve answers. You deserve to move without fear. And as your doctor, I want to help you get there step by step. Pain may have become part of your routine, but that doesn't make it normal. Maybe you've been told, just take some ibuprofen, or maybe someone said, it's just old age. But you're here now. You're asking questions. That means you're already on the path to healing. Understanding your body, really understanding it, is the first act of self-care. And I promise you, it's never too late to listen to your joints. Think of this video as a map. Over the next few chapters, I'll walk you through the major causes of joint pain, explain the subtle differences between types of arthritis, and help you figure out when to seek professional care. I'll also share stories from patients, insights from my years of practice, and practical advice you can use right now to feel better. We'll talk about inflammation, how your immune system plays a role, how to read blood work, and what lifestyle choices truly make a difference. So if you're wondering, is this just arthritis? Or if a little voice inside you suspects something more, stay with me. Because the more you understand, the better choices you can make. And trust me, the power to improve your joints, to reclaim freedom of movement, is still in your hands. Let's begin. Most people think arthritis is just old people joint pain, something you get in your knees or hands, maybe your hips. But that idea is dangerously incomplete. Arthritis isn't one single condition. It's a word that describes over 100 different diseases that cause joint inflammation. Some of them are mechanical, like osteoarthritis, where the cartilage wears down over time. Others are immune-driven, like rheumatoid arthritis or psoriatic arthritis, where your own body mistakenly attacks your joints. And then there are the sneaky ones, the ones that hide behind other symptoms and take years to diagnose correctly. Let's start with the most common, osteoarthritis. This is what most people mean when they say arthritis. It's caused by wear and tear. The cartilage that cushions your joints gradually breaks down, causing bones to rub against each other. It's painful, yes, but it's also slow and mechanical. You'll often notice it more after activity or at the end of the day. The pain tends to be localized. Your knee, your hip, maybe your thumb. Swelling is usually mild, and morning stiffness goes away in 10–15 minutes. It's common, but it's not inevitable, and it's manageable, especially if caught early. Then there's rheumatoid arthritis, RA, a completely different beast. RA is an autoimmune disease. That means your immune system, which is supposed to protect you, starts attacking the lining of your joints. It doesn't wait for age. I've seen it in patients in their 20s. The inflammation is intense. The pain is worse in the morning and can last for hours. It's often symmetrical, both hands, both knees, both ankles, and it's progressive. If untreated, RA can damage your joints permanently. But here's the key. The earlier you catch it, the better your chance of halting it. I remember a man named Tony, 41, father of two, mechanic. He came in with pain in both hands. He thought it was from overuse at work, but he also mentioned fatigue, low-grade fevers, and weight loss. Those were red flags. We ran his blood work. His rheumatoid factor and anti-CCP antibodies were both positive, classic signs of RA. We started treatment immediately. 6 months later, the inflammation was under control and he could return to work. He told me, "Doc, I thought I was just getting soft." "No, Tony, you were getting sick and your body was asking for help." Another condition that often hides behind the mask of arthritis is psoriatic arthritis, PSA. It usually affects people who have psoriasis, a skin condition that causes scaly patches. But here's the twist. Sometimes the joint pain comes before the skin symptoms. Patients may complain about pain in their fingers, toes, or lower back. Their joints may look sausage-like, swollen and tender, and yet they may not have a single patch of skin showing psoriasis. That's what makes it so tricky. PSA requires a keen eye and a detailed history. If a doctor doesn't ask about family history, fatigue, or nail changes, they might miss it entirely. There's also gout, which has a reputation for being caused by rich food and alcohol. And while that's partly true, the real story is more complex. Gout is caused by uric acid crystals that build up in the joints. It often hits suddenly, like a lightning bolt of pain, usually in the big toe, but it can affect other joints too. It's extremely painful, red, swollen, and hot. Some people mistake it for an infection. Gout attacks can come and go, but without treatment, they get worse. And yes, diet plays a role, but genetics, kidney function, and certain medications do too. I had a patient named Evelyn, 67, elegant, witty, loved baking. She came in with excruciating pain in her ankle. It was red, hot, and she couldn't walk. She thought she'd sprained it. But her labs showed sky-high uric acid. Gout. She burst into tears, not from the pain, but from embarrassment. "I didn't want to tell you I had wine and cheese the night before," she said. I told her, "Evelyn, gout is not a moral failing. It's a medical condition, and we're going to treat it." That conversation mattered, because shame is one of the reasons people suffer in silence. And then there are the more elusive causes of joint pain. Lupus, Lyme disease, even fibromyalgia. Lupus, for example, can cause widespread joint pain, along with fatigue, rashes, and organ involvement. It's an autoimmune condition, and it can mimic RA. Lyme disease can cause migrating joint pain after a tick bite, sometimes months after exposure. Fibromyalgia is a different story. It's more about central pain processing, and while it doesn't cause joint inflammation, it does cause pain that patients often describe as being deep in the joints. Misdiagnosis is common. That's why a detailed medical history is gold. What I want you to take away from this chapter is simple. Not all joint pain is created equal, and not all arthritis is the same. If your doctor dismisses your symptoms, tells you it's just aging, or doesn't dig deeper, you have the right to ask for more. Ask for blood tests, ask for imaging, ask for referrals. You are your own best advocate. The earlier you understand what kind of pain you're dealing with, the more power you have to manage it, or even stop it in its tracks. There are aches that whisper, and there are pains that scream. Not all joint discomfort is a sign of something serious. But some symptoms are trying to warn you, and ignoring them? That's how patients lose precious time, suffer needlessly, or let a manageable condition become something irreversible. Today we're going to walk through the warning signs that joint pain isn't just age or stress, but something deeper. Let's start with the duration. If joint pain lasts more than a few weeks, especially if it's not tied to a clear injury, that's a red flag. Temporary soreness after heavy lifting or a long walk is normal, but persistent discomfort that lingers or pain that comes back in cycles, that's your body waving a flag. When joints start hurting without a clear mechanical trigger, that's when you need to pause and investigate. Now let's talk about swelling. Mild swelling after physical exertion is one thing, but if a joint is regularly swollen, puffy, or feels tight, and especially if that swelling doesn't go away overnight, that's not just wear and tear. Inflammatory conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, gout, or lupus often show themselves through swelling that's persistent and painful. I once had a patient, Sarah, 39 yoga instructor, who came in with swollen wrists and said, "I think I'm just overdoing the plank poses." But her ESR and CRP were through the roof. She had early RA. Another red flag? Morning stiffness that lasts more than 30 minutes. This is a classic hallmark of inflammatory arthritis. With osteoarthritis, people often say, "I'm stiff in the morning, but once I move around, I feel better within 10-15 minutes." But when someone tells me it takes me an hour just to unclench my fingers, that's different. That's the immune system being overactive while you rest, and it often affects both sides of the body, both knees, both wrists. Symmetry is key. Then we have fever, fatigue, and weight loss. These aren't what you'd expect with a joint problem, right? But they're common in autoimmune diseases. The immune system doesn't just attack joints, it causes systemic inflammation. You may not feel sick, but you're unusually tired. You're dropping weight without trying. Or you have low-grade fevers that come and go. These are subtle, sneaky signs that your joint pain is part of something much larger, and they're often missed or chalked up to stress or hormones. Pay attention to the pattern of pain. Does it move? Is it always in the same joint, or does it jump around? Migrating joint pain can suggest viral arthritis, Lyme disease, or even reactive arthritis after infections. I had a patient, Kevin, 29, who had joint pain that started in his right knee, then showed up in his left ankle, then his wrist. Turns out he had a lingering bacterial infection after food poisoning, and his immune system was still reacting weeks later. We treated the root infection, and his joint symptoms faded within days. Don't ignore joint redness or warmth. If a joint is hot to the touch, visibly red and tender, it could be an infection, septic arthritis, or a severe gout flare. These are medical emergencies. They can destroy a joint in days if untreated. If the pain is sudden, severe, and accompanied by fever, go to the ER. I once saw a man who waited 3 days to treat a swollen red knee. By the time he came in, he needed emergency surgery to drain the joint. His cartilage was nearly gone. Let's talk about family history. If your parents, siblings, or grandparents had rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, or ankylosing spondylitis, your risk increases. Genetics play a role. So even if your symptoms are mild or unclear, your doctor should ask about your family. One woman I treated, Lucy, 35, had back pain that started in her teens. No one took her seriously until I asked, "Did anyone in your family have spinal issues?" Her mother had ankylosing spondylitis. We ran an HLA-B27 genetic test, positive. The diagnosis changed her life. Now, here's one that surprises people: nail changes and skin symptoms. If your nails are pitted, ridged, or separating from the nail bed, that's not just cosmetic. That's often a sign of psoriatic arthritis. Even if you've never had full-blown psoriasis, these tiny clues matter. I remember a patient who came in for bad cuticles, but when we looked closer, she had joint tenderness, fatigue, and a brother with psoriasis. That's how we caught PSA early and saved her years of pain. Another flag? Night pain that wakes you up. If joint pain is so intense it interrupts sleep, or if it's worse at night while resting, that can signal something more inflammatory. Osteoarthritis usually improves when you rest, but RA, lupus, and other autoimmune diseases often worsen during inactivity. Sleep should be healing, not painful. Let's pause here and reflect. You may hear these symptoms and think, "But I only have one or two." That's okay. The goal isn't to panic, it's to pay attention. Most serious joint conditions don't announce themselves all at once. They whisper, they nudge, and if you listen closely, you can catch them before they roar. And here's what I want every patient to know. You don't have to suffer in silence. So many people, especially women, are told it's just stress or it's in your head. I've had patients cry in relief when I say, no, you're not imagining this. Validation is powerful, and testing exists. Blood work, imaging, physical exams. These tools are here to help us connect the dots. Sometimes, the pain doesn't follow the rules. It shows up in places that don't seem connected. A sharp pinch in your heel, a strange tightness in your fingers, a dull throb in your lower back after just sitting still. Patients often come to me thinking it's arthritis, and sometimes they're right, but not always. There are many conditions that can mimic arthritis pain or even make it worse, and if we don't look closely, we might miss what's really going on. That's why I always remind people, pain is a symptom, not a diagnosis. One of the most common imposters is tendonitis. It's a condition where the tendons, those strong cords connecting muscles to bones, become inflamed, usually from overuse or strain. It can feel achy, swollen, and stiff, especially in the mornings, just like arthritis. But the treatment can be very different, and if you confuse the two, you might be doing more harm than good. I had a patient, Carla, in her early 60s, who thought her wrist pain was arthritis. It turned out to be a repetitive strain injury from years of gardening, and with rest and physical therapy, she was back to planting in no time. Another tricky culprit is bursitis, which is inflammation of the little fluid-filled sacs that cushion your joints. When these sacs swell, they can create sharp, stabbing pain that feels just like joint damage. But unlike arthritis, bursitis often flares up suddenly and can be triggered by a single awkward movement or pressure point. I remember one man who came in with what he called lightning bolts in his shoulder. Turns out it was bursitis from sleeping awkwardly every night. A simple adjustment to his posture and a cold compress made a huge difference. Then there's fibromyalgia, a condition still not fully understood, but very real. It causes widespread pain, fatigue, and brain fog, and can often be mistaken for arthritis when the discomfort settles in the joints. But there's a key difference. Fibromyalgia isn't caused by joint damage or inflammation. It's more like the volume knob on your nervous system gets stuck on high, making every touch, ache, or pressure feel louder than it should. It can be deeply frustrating, but with the right support and routines, people do find relief. Even poor circulation can play a role. I've seen patients with cold, aching hands or swollen ankles convinced they had arthritis, when in fact their blood flow was the problem. In these cases, movement, elevation, and sometimes even compression garments made a world of difference. It's a reminder that the body works as a whole. No system exists in isolation. When one part struggles, others compensate, and that can lead to confusing symptoms. Sometimes it's not even a physical issue. Stress, anxiety, and even long-term grief can settle into the body in very physical ways. I had one woman who lost her husband and began experiencing severe hip pain shortly after. Every scan came back clear, but the tension she held in her body was real. Through gentle therapy, movement, and processing her emotions, the pain eventually eased. Our minds and bodies are connected, always. So what's the takeaway here? Don't rush to label every ache as arthritis. It might be, but it might not. The more you understand your body, its patterns, its responses, its signals, the more empowered you become to care for it properly. That's the gift of awareness, and it's one I want every patient to have, because when we mislabel pain, we mistreat it, and you deserve better than that. Pain, in any form, is your body trying to get your attention, not just to suffer, but to understand. When someone walks into my office with joint pain, the first thing I do is listen carefully, because every word is a clue. How long have you felt it? When does it get worse? Is it sharp, dull, burning, stiff, or throbbing? The answers help us draw a map of what's really going on. And sometimes, that map points not to the joint itself, but to the muscles, nerves, or even the digestive system. Let me tell you about referred pain. This happens when the brain interprets pain from one area as if it's coming from another. A problem in your lower back might show up as knee pain. A pinched nerve in your neck can make your elbow or hand feel numb and tingly. That's why, before we reach for medications or joint injections, we need to look at the full picture. I once had a patient convinced her knee was falling apart. Turns out, it was sciatica from her spine. A few weeks of targeted stretching and core strengthening changed everything. Now let's talk about your posture. It may sound simple, but poor alignment, especially over years, puts uneven stress on your joints. That wear and tear doesn't always scream right away. It whispers over decades. If your head leans forward, your spine curves unnaturally. If your hips are weak, your knees pay the price. My advice? Watch yourself in the mirror when you stand. Are your shoulders level? Do your feet point straight ahead? Tiny corrections now can save you years of pain later. Another thing I want to talk about is your gut. Yes, your gut. More and more research is showing us that inflammation in the digestive tract can lead to systemic inflammation, including in your joints. People with leaky gut, food sensitivities, or autoimmune conditions like celiac disease often have mysterious joint pain that comes and goes. If you've tried everything else, ask your doctor to look into food-related triggers or run a basic inflammation panel. Sometimes healing your joints starts with healing your gut. Now, one of the most overlooked factors in joint health is sleep. I know it's not glamorous advice, but when your body doesn't get enough restorative sleep, it doesn't repair itself. Inflammation goes up, pain sensitivity increases, and your tolerance for discomfort goes way down. I always recommend my patients set a regular bedtime, keep screens away an hour before bed, and use magnesium or gentle teas like chamomile if needed. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. If you're someone who wakes up every day stiff and achy, I want you to consider a morning movement ritual. Nothing intense, just 5 minutes of gentle stretching. Roll your shoulders, swing your arms, stretch your calves. These small movements wake up the synovial fluid in your joints, which acts like oil in an engine. I call it priming the body, and it makes a huge difference, especially in older adults. Don't just dive into your day. Ease into it. Your joints will thank you. Let me give you a simple daily practice, the Joint 3. Pick 3 areas you want to protect, for example, knees, hips, and shoulders. Every morning, do one small thing for each. That might be 10 leg lifts, 10 hip circles, and 10 shoulder rolls. The goal is consistency, not intensity. You're sending a message to your body. I'm here, I'm listening, and I care. Another key habit? Hydration. You'd be surprised how many people live in a constant state of mild dehydration. Joints need water to stay lubricated and flexible. Cartilage is mostly water. When you don't drink enough, it becomes brittle. I suggest aiming for at least 6 to 8 glasses of water a day, more if you're active or live in a hot climate. Add a pinch of sea salt or a squeeze of lemon if you want to improve absorption. Now let's be honest, joint health isn't always about what you do, but also about what you stop doing. Stop ignoring pain that lingers. Stop sitting for hours without moving. Stop wearing shoes with no arch support. These tiny things accumulate over time. One of the most loving things you can do for your body is break up long periods of stillness with movement. Every 30-40 minutes, just stand up, stretch, and move. Think of it as pressing reset on your joints. And please, don't wait for a crisis. People often come to me after months, sometimes years, of ignoring the signs. Swelling, grinding, clicking, stiffness that doesn't go away. These are not just signs of aging. They are messages. If caught early, many joint problems can be managed or even reversed. If ignored, they may lead to surgeries that could have been avoided. Prevention is not dramatic, but it's powerful. Finally, never underestimate the role of emotions in physical health. Chronic stress tightens muscles, raises inflammation, and disrupts sleep, all of which worsen joint pain. That's why I always ask patients not just about their symptoms, but about their lives. Are you lonely? Overwhelmed? Angry? Your joints carry those feelings too. Healing your body also means creating space for your mind and spirit to rest. Sometimes, when people ask me what causes joint pain, I say, everything you do and everything you avoid. That sounds dramatic, but it's true. Your joints are deeply responsive to your habits. What you eat, how you move, how you rest, how you handle stress. There's no one villain. It's the full picture. Let me walk you through what I mean, because this is where real change begins. First, let's talk about food, not just in general, but very specifically. One of the most common drivers of inflammation is ultra-processed food, refined sugar, white flour, seed oils, preservatives, and additives. I've seen patients with years of mild joint pain make dramatic improvements within weeks of cutting these out. No, I'm not saying go on a harsh diet. I'm saying swap your cereal for oats, your white bread for sourdough, your soda for water. These aren't trends. They're basic signals to your body that say, I want to heal. Then there's protein, something many people don't get enough of, especially after age 50. Protein is crucial for maintaining muscle, and muscle is the best support system your joints could ask for. Weak muscles mean your joints take all the stress. I usually recommend around 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, depending on activity level. Don't overthink it. Just add some eggs, legumes, fish, or Greek yogurt to your day. It's not just about pain, it's about prevention. And if you think supplements will fix everything, I have to be honest, they won't, unless the foundation is there. But that said, a few can truly help. Omega-3 fatty acids, especially from high-quality fish oil, can reduce joint inflammation. Vitamin D helps your bones and immune system. Magnesium supports muscle relaxation and sleep. And turmeric, in a bioavailable form like curcumin with black pepper, can be a powerful natural anti-inflammatory. I always say, supplements support, but they don't replace. Now let's go deeper into movement, because this is where most people either do too much or far too little. The worst thing for your joints? Immobility. When you don't move, your joints stiffen, the cartilage gets less nourishment, and muscles start to shrink. But jumping into intense exercise can backfire too, especially if your form is off. That's why I recommend something called therapeutic movement. It's not about sweating. It's about alignment, activation, and control. Think resistance bands, gentle Pilates, Tai Chi, water aerobics. One of the best daily habits you can build is a mobility circuit, a short routine you do every morning or evening. 5 minutes is enough. Start with neck circles, then shoulder rolls. Move to hip circles, then ankle rolls. Finish with deep breathing and slow squats, even if they're partial. What this does is stimulate synovial fluid, bring blood to the joints, and remind your brain that this body is still in use. It's like oiling a machine. Small inputs, big impact. Let's talk about weight now, carefully and without shame. Every extra pound puts about 4 extra pounds of pressure on your knees when walking. That means just losing 5 kilos can reduce knee load by 20 kilos per step. But here's what people misunderstand. You don't need to chase perfection. You need to shift momentum. Losing even a small amount of weight through gentle lifestyle changes, not restriction, not punishment, can bring real relief. Start walking 15 minutes a day. Replace late-night snacks with herbal tea your body notices. Now, what about footwear? I can't tell you how often foot mechanics are behind joint pain. If your arches collapse, your knees rotate inward. If your shoes lack support, your spine compensates. Invest in shoes with good arch support, wide toe boxes, and a slight heel lift. And if you're often barefoot on hard floors, try padded slippers or cushion mats. Small changes here create better posture, better shock absorption, and better alignment from the ground up. For those who sit a lot, at desks, in cars, at home, I want you to set a timer. Every 30 to 40 minutes, stand up, stretch your arms, do a few squats or heel raises, walk to the window. Movement is medicine, but it must be frequent. Long periods of stillness are like pressing pause on your circulation. Your joints need nutrients and oxygen, and motion is how they get delivered. Now let me address an overlooked topic: grief and trauma. Physical pain is often layered with emotional pain. I've seen patients carry sorrow in their shoulders, tension in their hips, anxiety in their jaws. When we experience loss, of loved ones, of independence, of control, the body absorbs it. Chronic pain is not always mechanical. That's why practices like journaling, breathwork, therapy, or even talking to someone you trust can indirectly reduce joint pain. Healing is multidimensional. Finally, I'll say this. Your health is not a straight line. You'll have good days, bad days, plateaus, relapses. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're alive. What matters is consistency over intensity. If you miss a workout, try again tomorrow. If the pain flares up, Rest, don't quit. If you're overwhelmed, start with one small change. The body is always listening, and it responds best not to force, but to kindness. If you've stayed with me this long, it means one thing: you care. Not just about the pain in your joints, but about understanding your body, respecting it, and working with it instead of against it. And I want you to know something that not many doctors say out loud. Joint pain is not a life sentence, it's a message, a signal, a conversation your body is trying to have with you. And the more you listen, the more you gently respond, the more freedom you'll find. Let's talk about what it really takes to manage chronic joint pain long term. You've already heard me say that inflammation is a major player, but here's something else I want you to know. Chronic inflammation is often driven by a nervous system stuck in fight or flight, meaning your stress levels, your background anxiety, your sense of urgency, your inner tension, all feed into how much your body stays inflamed. This is why even the cleanest diet won't solve everything if you're constantly on edge. You need calm to heal. That doesn't mean you need to quit your job and move to a mountain cabin. It means you build small, consistent practices into your day. 5 minutes of slow breathing in the morning, a short walk after dinner, turning off your phone an hour before bed, listening to calming music while you cook. These sound simple, but they retrain your nervous system to feel safe. And when your body feels safe, it turns off the alarm bells. And those bells, that's often what your pain is. Now let me tell you something about expectations. We live in a culture of instant fixes: one pill, one video, one stretch. But the body is not a machine you fix. It's a living system you care for. Healing is cyclical. Some days you'll feel lighter, stronger, more mobile. Other days you'll feel stiff, tired, discouraged. That's normal. Don't let one bad day erase the progress of the last 10. Keep showing up for your body. The most powerful treatment is consistency. Let's not forget sleep. I say this with urgency. If you don't sleep well, your joints won't recover. During deep sleep, your body repairs tissue, calms inflammation, and restores the balance of hormones like cortisol and melatonin. Aim for 7 to 8 hours and create an evening ritual. Dim lights, warm tea, no screens, gentle stretches. Make your bedroom a sanctuary. And if pain wakes you at night, try a pillow under the knees for back pain or between the legs for hip pain. Comfort is medicine. Now let's talk about movement as identity. One of the most devastating parts of joint pain is not the physical discomfort. It's the way it changes how we see ourselves. I used to hike. I used to dance. I used to play with my grandkids without thinking about my knees. And now it feels like your world has gotten smaller. But I want you to hear this. You can still move. You can still rebuild. You just have to start where you are. Movement is not all or nothing. You don't need to run marathons. You need to reclaim movement as yours. That might mean dancing in your kitchen, walking in the pool, doing yoga from a chair. Every step, every stretch, every breath, it all matters. And the more you move, the more you tell your brain, I'm still in here. I'm still living. And I know you've probably heard it all before, from videos, from doctors, from books, but I hope what you're hearing from me is different. I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm telling you why it matters. I'm reminding you that this is your body, your life, and your pain does not have the final word. Here's something personal. I've sat with people who felt hopeless. I've seen tears when someone says, I'm only 60 and I feel 90, and I've watched their whole posture shift just from learning what's actually going on. Knowledge is power. When you understand your labs, your lifestyle, your joints, you start to feel in control again. And that control brings peace. So let me leave you with this. Healing your joints isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about listening. It's about being patient. Every healthy meal, every short walk, every hour of good sleep, every deep breath, these are not small things. These are bricks. And brick by brick, you are building your future. Your pain is real, but so is your power, and I believe in both.